Look, everybody knows Mewtwo and Rayquaza are strong in Pokemon Go, but certain legendaries when they came to Pokemon Go did not get the same treatment. So today we're going to be talking about the worst legendary Pokemon to power up in Pokemon Go, Pokemon that Niantic slapped in the face, threw out the window, and said good luck. And we're going to be explaining why these Pokemon are so bad, so don't go anywhere, and let's get into the Pokemon that you're wasting your Stardust if you power up. And it all starts in Generation 1, the beloved Kanto region, alongside Zapdos, which is clearly the best bird legendary, because Team Instinct, of course, is the best team. Look, Moltres is not bad, but where things fall short is when we take a look at Team Mystic. I'm sorry, Team Mystic, but your mascot legendary sucks. Articuno is a very defense stat Pokemon, unlike the other three legendaries from Gen 1. And this does not translate well in Pokemon Go. It makes it a completely weak Ice-type attacker in Pokemon Go with a DPS of 12.46. That is absurdly low for a legendary. And Niantic did try to save this Pokemon by giving it Triple Axle and Hurricane to buff it, but it really didn't do much for this Pokemon. Even with these buffs, Articuno is ranked 498 in the Great League, 179 in the Ultra League, and 153 in the Master League. Vaporeon is ranked higher than it in the Master League. Unfortunately, a defensive stat Pokemon doesn't generally work well in Pokemon Go, except sometimes for PvP if their moveset is good, but Articuno did not get that. Dynamax Articuno did look promising as well as a tank Dynamax Pokemon, however, it lacks a quick Dynamax meter filling move, so overall it is the weakest legendary of Generation 1 and not worth your Stardust. But when we take a look at Gen 2 with only 5 legendary Pokemon, you would think that there's probably a couple bad eggs in there. But really, surprisingly, there's only one. Look, obviously Ho-Oh and Lugia, super strong. And then if we take a look at the types again, the electric type beast, Raikou, super cool, pretty powerful. Same with Entei, which is not bad. But again, Team Mystic, even though Suicune is not your mascot legendary, it is still a water type, and it is still pretty bad. Now, Suicune in Pokemon Go has an attack of 180, defense of 235, and stamina of 225, so pretty bulky, right? But unfortunately, again, it's been shafted by its moveset. Having the fast moves of Extra Sensory, arguably one of the worst fast moves in the game, Snarl, Hidden Power, and Ice Fang, and for charge moves, Ice Beam, Bubble Beam, Water Pulse, Scald, and Hydro Pump, pretty much a water and ice type moveset. This thing just doesn't have coverage in PvP to make it good. You're looking at the 147 Pokemon in the Great League, 191 in the Ultra League, and 120 in the Master League. And for a legendary, those are pretty bad rankings, especially because we have cheaper Pokemon that just do its job better, like Lapras in the Great and the Ultra League, and Kyogre, which maybe is not as easy to get, but completely outclasses as a water type in the Master League. And looking at this Pokemon in raids, its highest DPS moveset is 11.13. Even Huntail has a higher DPS than that. And I hate Huntail. I'm sorry. Friendly fire on Huntail, friendly fire. As a Dynamax Pokemon, this Pokemon could have been good if it was given Water Gun, as this would have been a really quick max meter filling move it could have used. So huge wasted potential on this Pokemon. Do not power it up unless it gets a big buff in the future. Now look, those last two were not good, and don't power them up, but it only gets worse from here, because we move on into Generation 3, where we have one of the tankiest Pokemon there is, Registeel. And Registeel is great, an amazing PvP Pokemon and an amazing typing. But its brothers, not so much. First, taking a look at Regirock, which has an attack of 179, defense of 309, and HP of 190. Very bulky. It also has the rock typing, which gives it a bunch of defensive abilities, and a decent moveset with Rock Throw, Rock Smash, and Lock On. And for charge moves, Earthquake, Stone Edge, Focus Blast, and Zap Cannon. This Pokemon is by no means bad, but also no means amazing, as it gets outshined by its Registeel brother all the time. Where we have to point our fingers at is Regice, or Regice, I think is how you say it. Doesn't matter, it sucks. This is by far the worst Gen 3 legendary, and let me explain. Has the exact same stats as Regirock, and for moves, it has Frost Breath, Rock Smash, and Lock On for fast attacks, and Earthquake, Blizzard, Thunder, and Focus Blast for charge moves. And that's partly on why it misses out. The 4 charge moves it can learn are all moves that take 100 energy to use. They are some of the most expensive nuke charge moves in the game on the most defensive Pokemon in the game. It does not make a lot of sense. It's also not able to learn any decent Ice-type moves, which misses out on a bunch of stab. And Ice-type is arguably not a very good offensive type, having only 1 resistance to Ice and 4 weaknesses to Fighting, Rock, steel, and fire. This Pokemon sucks across the board in PvP and in raids. With a DPS of 11.2, even Sneasel does more damage than it in raids. Just don't even raid this thing. Now, Generation 4 was the first generation I ever played. And playing through the game, there was a bunch of Pokemon in it that I caught in the main series games that were actually pretty useful in battle. Starting off with some of the rarest Pokemon in the game right now, the Lake Trio. Uxie, Azelf, and Mesprit can all be caught in the wild at any point in time in Pokemon Go, but they are extremely rare. There's about like 16 of them that spawn at one point. Now, yes, you might want to catch these Pokemon because they're rare, but no, you don't want to power them up. And here's why. Now, if you don't know how these Pokemon work, they have a varying stat spread, with Uxie having a more bulky stat spread, Azelf having a more offensive stat spread, and Mesprit being more balanced. So, thinking of Uxie, you would think that it would be pretty good at PvP, being bulky, being able to take hits. And you'd be wrong. And that's because of its fast moves. Uxie was given Confusion and Extra Sensory. Confusion, not that bad. But then for charge moves, it can learn Thunder, Swift, and Future Sight, with only one of those being average. On top of that, 3 of its 5 moves are psychic types, giving it pretty much no coverage at all. It's 406 ranking in the Great League, 177 in the Ultra League, and 349 in the Master League explains a lot. Don't power that up. Then you take a look at Azelf. This Pokemon should be good for raids, right? Because it's more attack focused. With an attack of 270, only 30 below Mewtwo. Well, no, unfortunately you'd be wrong, because this Pokemon is still the number 26 Psychic type attacker in Pokemon Go. The reason for that is there's just so many easier to get higher attack stat Psychic type Pokemon than a legendary like Azelf. On top of that, it can learn Future Sight, which is not the best Psychic type move for raids. Finally, take a look at Mesprit, which is supposed to be balanced, but unfortunately balanced stats don't really help out in Pokemon Go. You want to either be super bulky to be good at PvP, or super attack weighted to be good at raids. And anything in the middle, you might as well be nothing. Now, there's thoughts around the world saying that these Pokemon were intentionally nerfed in Pokemon Go because you could catch them in the wild and get them at any point, and if they were too strong and too rare, no one would have them. But to be honest, none of this really matters because there is one legendary that is way worse than this, and you think it wouldn't be. Let's go back to when I was a little boy playing Pokemon Pearl for the first time. I had gotten all 3 of my Regis and I was ready to reawaken the colossal Pokemon Regigigas. This monstrous Pokemon that literally towers over you and you just want it on your team. But when I started the battle, it wasn't that hard because Regigigas in the main series games has an ability called Slow Start. Slow Start is going to half the attack and speed of Regigigas for the first 5 turns of the battle. This thing was so strong in the main series games, they had to nerf it for 5 turns every battle. And honestly, it makes sense. So when it was brought to Pokemon Go, Niantic did the same thing and absolutely destroyed the potential of this Pokemon ever being good. Which honestly, with an attack stat of 287, defense of 210, stamina of 221, I guess makes sense. But then slap on Zen Headbutt and Hidden Power, the 2 worst fast moves in the game, and give it the charge moves of Thunder, Focus Blast, and Giga Impact, 3 of the most energy costing moves in the game, you have yourself a colossal pile of garbage. Look, I love Regigigas, I think it is a great Pokemon, but by no means is it a good investment at all. It also has the normal typing, which makes it completely useless in raids as normal can't do super effective damage and it doesn't get stabbed on other types of moves. It makes sense why it's nerfed, it's completely broken, but I do hope someday Niantic kind of unnerfs it a little bit so people can get a little use out of this Pokemon. Let's move on to Generation 5 though. A generation that I played a lot of and I enjoyed. But there was 3 Pokemon that I was always very curious about. Landorus, Thundurus, and Tornadus are Pokemon that have 2 forms. They're Therian forms and they're Incarnate forms. And I never understood what the point of the Incarnate forms were. Now, Landorus has been good in both forms just because of its insane typing of ground and flying, one of the best typings in the game. But then if we jump over to Thundurus, explain this to me. Incarnate form of Thundurus has an attack of 266, defense of 164, stamina of 188. Therian form of Thundurus has an attack of 295, defense of 161, and stamina of 188. By losing 3 points of defense, it gains almost 30 points in attack. But Incarnate Thundurus luckily has pretty good attacks, making it a decent electric type raid attacker. Where everything falls off is in the worst Generation 5 legendary, Incarnate form of Tornadus. Attack of 266, defense of 164, stamina of 188. For fast attacks, it can learn Bite and Air Slash, 2 terrible fast attacks. And for charge moves, Hyper Beam, Dark Pulse, Hurricane, and Grass Knot, all super expensive moves to use. As a legendary which costs a lot of candy and stardust to power up, it is the number 15 flying type attacker, outclassed by things like Staraptor, which you can literally find in your backyard. Don't even think about using this thing in PvP. With a ranking of 1019 in the Great League, 747 in the Ultra League, and 354 in the Master League, I feel like this has got to be one of the worst ranked Pokemon there is. Oh, I take that back. Shadow Regigigas is ranked 1031 in the Great League. Yeah, goes to show again, don't power that thing up. Nonetheless, unfortunately, Tornadus is just not it, and definitely not worth rating or even powering up. Stick to the other genies. Moving on to the next generation, Gen 6, which arguably has no bad legendaries. We have things like Xerneas, Yveltal, Zygarde, and Diancie in this generation, which all got pretty well represented in Pokemon Go and all have their use. Arguably, some of these are even the best in the game, with Zygarde being one of the best Master League Pokemon there is, although still one of the hardest to get. But unfortunately, all that changes when we take a look at Generation 7. Let's start off with our favorite boys, Tapus. Although they have some of the funnest names to pronounce, Tapu Bulu, Tapu Lele. What am I doing? They are not the greatest overall. Now, by no means are they the worst, but in the main series games, each Tapu had a terrain effect where it could go ahead and boost specific types while it controls the battlefield. Unfortunately, Pokemon Go doesn't have abilities, so they completely lose out on the potential for this. And Go even nerfed them more because in the main series games, they have access to some pretty good fairy type moves, but in Go, they just weren't given them. Specifically, all 4 Tapus did not get a fairy fast move, which really hurt their potential as raid attackers for the fairy category. Now, luckily, they were all given Nature's Madness recently, which did buff their relevance, but by no means bring them to the top. Tapu Fini and Tapu Bulu are pretty good, with Tapu Fini being a top PvP Pokemon for the Great League and the Ultra League, and Tapu Bulu being good in the Master League and as a grass type attacker. But these Pokemons had huge potential, and unfortunately Niantic kind of nerfed them, so they wouldn't be my priority to power up. Then we can jump to the second worst legendary of this generation, Lunala. Yes, this thing looks absolutely sick, but was not given proper respect like Solgaleo was in Pokemon Go. With a great stat spread of an attack of 255, defense of 199, and stamina of 264, where this thing falls short is its moves. It was given the fast attacks of Confusion and Air Slash. Yes, you heard me, Confusion and Air Slash. It did not get a ghost type fast move like Shadow Claw. Now, Confusion does put it up on the rankings as a psychic type attacker, making it the number 21 psychic damage per second attacker in Pokemon Go, which is not bad, but things like Espeon have a higher DPS than it. Then if we're talking PvP, this thing is ranked 671 in the Ultra League, 140 in the Master League. Again, those fast moves were just not it. But the Pokemon that got shafted the most, but is also arguably one of the best, was Necrozma. Now, no, I'm not talking about Dawn Wings or Duskmane Necrozma. I'm talking about the base form of Necrozma. Regular base form of Necrozma is a pure psychic Pokemon. Attack of 251, defense of 195, and stamina of 219. For fast moves, it actually could learn Shadow Claw, Psycho Cut, Metal Claw, and for charge moves, Dark Pulse, Iron Head, Future Sight, and Outrage, which are not bad moves. But unfortunately, this Pokemon is just completely outclassed in every category it's in. In the Ultra League, it's ranked 570. In the Master League, it's ranked 102. Meanwhile, its counterparts, Dawn Wings Necrozma and Duskmane Necrozma, are ranked in the top 20. You see, the reason you don't want to power up this Pokemon by itself is because you want to fuse it before you power it up. Having a Duskmane or Dawn Wings Necrozma, you're going to get way more bang for your buck, because in its regular form, it is not good. It's actually like the number 40 psychic type attacker or DPS in Pokemon Go. So again, fuse that bad boy, don't leave it as is. And that brings us to our final generation, Generation 8. Which actually, in my opinion, could have the worst legendary Pokemon in the game right now. Starting off with Zamazenta. When you're Zamazenta and you're the brother of Zacian, which is arguably one of the best legendaries in the Pokemon universe, you're gonna struggle. It's gonna be ranked 481 in the Ultra League and ranked 34 in the Master League. But unfortunately, being a fighting type Pokemon, it was only given one fighting type move, Close Combat, which completely kills its usefulness as a raid attacker. Now in PvP, you definitely can get use out of this, but I wouldn't recommend powering it up because again, Zacian is just better and your resources are better spent there. But things only actually get worse from here. Now remember how Uxie, Azelf, and Mesprit were some of the rarest Pokemon in Pokemon Go? I actually take that back because these two legendaries are arguably even rarer. And we all know them from the amount of times they've ran from us, the Galarian birds. Now similar to the Kanto versions of these birds, Galarian Moltres is actually not bad and has been seeing a lot of PvP play recently, with its highest ranking being 23 in the Ultra League. Then we take a look at Zapdos, which was pretty good in Pokemon Go before Counter got nerfed, and is the number 22 fighting type attacker in Pokemon Go right now. So it's not great, but it's not that bad. Where everything falls short is in, unfortunately, Galarian Articuno. I'm sorry, Team Mystic, you guys are just taking L after L today. Now with an attack of 250, defense of 197, and HP of 207, with the fast attacks of Psycho Cut and Confusion, and charge moves of Ancient Power, Brave Bird, and Future Sight, it also has the punishment of having 3 of its 5 moves being Psychic type. This gives it terrible rankings in PvP, which in the Great League ranked 706, in the Ultra League ranked 555, and in the Master League 223. That might be some of the worst rankings I've seen for a Pokemon that rare. As far as rate attacking goes, you're looking at somewhere along the number 39 Psychic type attacker. Unfortunately, this thing was just given bad movesets and it's just not going to be that good. It could get updated in the future, but just don't power those up. But none of this compares to, in my opinion, what the 2 worst legendaries are in the game. Let's get into it. I was so excited when these things were released because they were released in Elite Raids, and I was at the Vancouver Regionals, and I think these Pokemon look sick. But once I got them in my bag, I realized it was not worth it. Let's talk about Regieleki and Regidrago. Now for legendaries, these Pokemon have some pretty tough stats. With Regieleki having an attack of 250, defense of 195, and stamina of 190, and Regidrago having an attack of 202, defense of 101, and a stamina of 400. That might be some of the highest stamina in game. Does it help it though? Not much, and that's because of their movesets. Similar to Regice, Regieleki got Thunder Shock, Volt Switch, and Lock On, and for charge moves, Hyper Beam, Thunder, and Zap Cannon. Yes, again, 3 charge moves that are absolute nukes. Switch to Regidrago on the other hand, and it got really decent charge moves with Hyper Beam, Dragon Pulse, Outrage, and Breaking Swipe. Not the best, but then for its fast attacks, it got Bite. Just Bite. I'm sure it wants to bite Niantic right now. This gives Regieleki a ranking of 1010 in the Great League, 692 in the Ultra League, and it is not even ranked in the Master League because it is so bad. It is off the charts. Jumping to Regidrago, you're looking at 633 in the Ultra League and ranked 336 in the Master League. Maybe one of the worst ranking legendaries in the Master League. As far as raids go, we don't even need to talk about these Pokemon because their stats are just not attack focused. And Regidrago doesn't even have a Dragon Fast move. These things are dumpster garbages in Pokemon Go, and unless Niantic gives them move updates to save them, don't power them up. Nonetheless, watch the other 2 videos on screen if you enjoyed this one. That is my ranking of the worst legendaries in Pokemon Go. If you want to see me continue these rankings, maybe with Ultra Beasts or with other Pokemon, let me know in the comment section below and follow for more tips. Peace.